Think of two 75-year-old people. Neither smokes. Neither drinks excessively. Neither has been diagnosed with a serious disease. On paper, both appear reasonably healthy. Yet one of them faces a dramatically higher risk of cognitive decline, heart disease, and even premature death. The difference is not what most people would expect. It is not diet. It is not physical activity. It is not genetics. It's loneliness. And perhaps most surprising of all, loneliness appears to leave measurable fingerprints throughout the body, affecting the brain, the cardiovascular system, the immune system, and even the way we age. For decades, researchers focused on the usual suspects behind poor health outcomes: smoking, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, and lack of exercise. But over the last several years, scientists from the National Institutes of Health, Harvard Medical School, the American Heart Association, and many other research institutions have reached a conclusion that has fundamentally changed how we think about healthy aging. Chronic loneliness is not simply an unpleasant emotion. It is increasingly being recognized as a significant health risk. Not as a metaphor. As a measurable biological reality. But before we understand what loneliness does to the body, we first need to understand why it has become such an important issue. Across the United States, millions of older adults are experiencing growing levels of social disconnection. Retirement often removes daily social interactions. Children move away. Friends relocate or pass away. A spouse may no longer be there. The social networks that once formed the structure of everyday life can slowly begin to shrink. What makes this issue particularly difficult to recognize is that loneliness is not the same thing as being alone. A person can be surrounded by family and still feel profoundly lonely. Another person can live alone and feel completely fulfilled. Researchers make an important distinction between social isolation and loneliness. Social isolation is objective. Loneliness is subjective. It is the feeling that the relationships available to us are not providing the connection we need. And that distinction may be far more important than most people realize. What intrigued scientists was that loneliness seemed to do much more than influence mood. It appeared to alter the body itself. How could an emotional experience influence something as physical as blood pressure, memory, inflammation, or even lifespan? The answer may lie deep in our evolutionary past. Human beings evolved as social creatures. For hundreds of thousands of years, survival depended on belonging to a group. Being separated from that group was not merely uncomfortable. It was dangerous. A person alone faced greater risks from predators, injury, starvation, and countless other threats. As a result, the human brain evolved to treat social disconnection as a warning signal. And that warning system remains active today. For the ancient brain, isolation did not simply mean sadness. It meant vulnerability. When the brain perceives social disconnection, it activates stress response systems designed to help us survive danger. These systems involve the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and the sympathetic nervous system. Stress hormones increase. Alertness rises. The body prepares itself for threat. This response can be useful in the short term. But when loneliness becomes chronic, the body remains trapped in a prolonged state of vigilance. Researchers refer to the accumulated wear and tear caused by chronic stress as allostatic load. In simple terms, the body pays a biological price for remaining on high alert. And the effects do not stop in the brain. Researchers expected loneliness to affect emotional well-being. What they did not expect was to find evidence of its influence throughout nearly every major system of the body. One of the clearest examples appears in cardiovascular health. Chronic loneliness has been associated with elevated blood pressure, increased inflammation, and disruptions in the body's normal stress regulation systems. The heart is constantly responding to signals from the brain. When those signals repeatedly communicate threat, the cardiovascular system feels the consequences. This invisible burden can persist for years. No symptom announces its presence. No laboratory test directly identifies it. Yet the biological effects continue to accumulate. Then came a discovery that forced many researchers to rethink the importance of human connection itself. When scientists combined data from dozens of long-term studies involving hundreds of thousands of participants, a striking pattern emerged. Loneliness was associated with a 14% increase in all-cause mortality. Social isolation was associated with a 35% increase. Living alone was associated with a 21% increase. These are not trivial numbers. These are risk levels that would immediately attract medical attention if they were linked to a medication, a disease, or a lifestyle habit. Some studies have even suggested that the health impact of chronic loneliness may be comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes per day. 15 cigarettes. That comparison captured headlines around the world. Not because loneliness and smoking are identical, but because it revealed something unexpected. Human connection may be far more biologically important than we once believed. And perhaps nowhere is this more concerning than in the aging brain. Over the last decade, researchers have uncovered growing evidence linking loneliness to cognitive decline and dementia. Large longitudinal studies have found that lonely individuals face a higher risk of developing dementia over time. In 2024, the Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention, Intervention and Care identified social isolation and loneliness among the major potentially modifiable risk factors for dementia. Potentially modifiable. Those two words matter. Because they suggest that loneliness is not necessarily a permanent condition. Nor is its impact inevitable. Scientists believe several mechanisms may be involved. Chronically elevated cortisol can affect the hippocampus, a brain region essential for memory formation. At the same time, reduced social engagement often means fewer cognitively stimulating conversations, fewer opportunities for mental challenge, and fewer reasons for the brain to continually strengthen its networks. Over time, cognitive reserve may begin to erode. The brain becomes less resilient, less prepared to compensate for age-related changes. But there is encouraging news. Research increasingly suggests that meaningful social engagement may help support cognitive health. The key word is meaningful. The evidence does not suggest that people need enormous social circles. Instead, quality appears to matter more than quantity. A genuine conversation. A trusted friendship. A sense of belonging. These experiences may provide benefits that extend far beyond emotional comfort. And the story does not end with the brain. Loneliness appears to influence the entire aging process. Older adults experiencing chronic loneliness often show signs of increased inflammation and reduced immune efficiency. Scientists are now investigating how social disconnection may contribute to accelerated biological aging. Biological age is different from chronological age. Two people may both be 75 years old on the calendar. Yet their bodies may be aging at different rates. What is particularly fascinating is that the body appears capable of responding when meaningful connection returns. Studies have linked volunteering, participation in community groups, social activities, and other forms of engagement with better health outcomes, greater resilience, and improved quality of life among older adults. In other words, there may be a biology of loneliness. But there may also be a biology of recovery. That possibility has become one of the most exciting areas of aging research. And it helps explain another observation that has repeatedly appeared in studies of long-lived populations. When researchers examined some of the longest-living communities in the world, they found enormous differences in culture, language, geography, and diet. Yet one pattern appeared again and again. People remained connected. They belonged to families, communities, religious groups, friendship networks, neighborhoods. The specific form varied. But the presence of meaningful connection remained remarkably consistent. Connection was not an accessory to healthy aging. It appeared to be part of its foundation. And this brings us back to one of the most important distinctions in the entire discussion. Being alone is not necessarily harmful. Feeling alone is. Researchers have repeatedly found that subjective loneliness can predict health outcomes even after accounting for objective measures of social contact. This means a person can have visitors, phone calls, and social activities, yet still experience the physiological consequences of loneliness. The experience itself matters. The perception of connection matters. Perhaps that is the most important lesson emerging from this field of research. For many years, health was viewed primarily as an individual responsibility. Eat well. Exercise regularly. Take your medications. Those things remain critically important. But modern science is revealing that relationships belong in that conversation too. The quality of our social connections may influence how we think, how we feel, how we age, and even how long we live. So let us return to the two 75-year-olds we met at the beginning. Their difference may never appear on a routine medical test. It may not show up on a scale. It may not be visible on a scan. Instead, it may be reflected in something much simpler. Who calls? Who visits? Who listens? Who shares a meal? Who helps someone feel that they still belong? Because science is increasingly uncovering something our ancestors may have understood intuitively all along. Human beings were not designed merely to survive. They were designed to connect. And that connection may be one of the quietest, and most powerful, forces shaping a long and healthy life.